Hey, what's going on, champs? I'm Aaron Deliosa. Welcome to an Immigrant's Life podcast, my podcast about immigrants and immigration and everything in between. Thank you for listening and downloading the show, and thank you for supporting my dad.
Welcome back, Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. March is here. That means in Canada, we are getting closer and closer to spring, meaning I'm getting closer to go cycling and hiking again. Two of my favorite pastimes or hobby, if you want to call that. Last week, I sent my bike to the bike shop. Cost me an arm and a leg, but it is what it is. It's part of the game. It's a very expensive hobby, but it's worth it. I do love it. I had to fix it because last year I fell off my bike. I had an accident. I lost balance and I just fell and hit my head. I was okay. I still finished the ride. I think it was 50 kilometers. But yeah, I'm glad I'm okay and I'm safe and I cannot wait to get on the bike again. I got a big plan with my friend. We're planning to do a big ride, hopefully about 300 kilometers. Anyways, thank you for being here. I appreciate that you're here. I'd also appreciate if you could join the Immigrant Nation by subscribing to the podcast on wherever podcasting platform you are listening to, even on YouTube. And if you want more An Immigrant's Life content, you can check our social media accounts. Our handle is at An Immigrant's Life. And if you or someone you know wants to be a guest on the podcast, reach out to our social media accounts that I've mentioned just now, or you can email us to at animigrantslife@yahoo.com. Let's connect and let's tell your beautiful story. House cleaning is done. Now, let's talk about the episode. This week's guest lived through World War II, extreme poverty and prejudice in his adopted homeland. But that didn't stop him from succeeding and becoming a vascular surgeon. I really enjoyed talking to him regarding about his life and his experiences about being a surgeon, and I'm sure you will enjoy listening to his stories as well. So let's not waste more time. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest is a retired vascular surgeon, third author. He'll fix you right up with his surgical hands and then heal your soul with his life lessons. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Salvatore Forcina.
Hi,
How you doing, doctor?
doing very well. Grazie. Thank you.
Grazie for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
How would you like me to call you? Dr. Salvatore, Dr. Forcina?
Whatever you please, whatever you want, whatever make you comfortable.
I don't know.
You can call me even Sal if you
Sal?
want.
All right, I'll call you Sal. All right?
Yes.
My grandma would kill me for calling you Sal. I should call you Dr. Sal or Mr. Sal, but
Well,
if
yeah,
you said yes.
it's okay.
Before we get into things, why don't you tell the Immigrant Nation where they can reach you or if you want to promote anything?
Well, I wrote a book called The American Doctor that is going to come out March 14, and it's published by Histria Books. And this is very, it's a sentimental thing because our life is like a seed that depend where this seed land. There is a potential to grow. There's a potential for the wind to blow into the desert, and something can happen or nothing can happen at all.
I love it. It's like in the Bible,
Yeah.
the parable of the seeds.
Yes.
Beautiful. Listen, I'm excited for your book. I'm sure it was a lot of work. But before we start talking about the book, let's talk about you a little bit.
Yes.
You were born in Italy during World War I.
No,
When I
World War II.
World War II. Okay, World War
World
II.
War II. And
Okay.
a location is in between Rome and Naples.
Mm.
It's a Roman province called Lazio, and the town is Scauri.
Mm.
Scauri is a town less than 10,000 people. It's a summer resort, has beautiful beaches. It's very historical.
Mm-hmm.
The Appian Way go through my town. The famous Appian Way, built 312 before Christ.
Wow.
So there is a lot of history there.
That's crazy.
And I like history.
Yeah. What do you like about history?
Well, you know what happened? I like more the past than the present, because the past thing happened, and because of the right or bad decision made in the past, you can learn.
Hmm.
For the future, you don't know where you stand.
But if you learn from the past, you can prepare for the future.
That's right. That's correct.
So I know you moved to Argentina. How old
Yes.
were you before you moved to Argentina?
I was 8 years old
Hmm.
when we went to Argentina, and I spent 20 years in Argentina. I studied in Argentina.
Do you remember living in Italy?
Not too much, because I was very young.
Okay.
But what I made a comment in the book is because my father used to tell me things. And the past is like a written stone. As the one get older, they forget the thing recently happened, but you remember the past because the past is written in stones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By the way, why did your parents decide to move to Argentina? Why Argentina?
Okay. So what happened was my father was a worker, and he worked in the ceramic in a factory that make brick, tiles. This was before in 1947. The factory decided to build another factory in Argentina. And at that time, like I was saying before, in the area that we were close to Monte Cassino. Monte Cassino is an abbey building 500, more or less. That area, the German controlled that area. And the front got stuck there for 7 months, 8 months, I don't remember. And there was a lot of destruction, a lot of misery. The German plant a lot of mines. Many people lost limbs, the atrocity of the war. And so what happened, that the people were desperate. There was nothing. And so the opportunity came that for my father to go to Argentina with another 60 people, all bricklayer, the carpenter, you name it, and they have the trip paid, and they could stay there for 2 years. If after 2 years they didn't want to stay, they were repatriated. And so my father went first in 47. Eventually, me, my mother, and my brother. In 48, I was 8 years old. We went to Argentina.
Did you take the boat?
Yes, it was a boat. My mother was sick all the time, and we kids were running. But it's not the boat you had today with a stabilizer or whatever. That was bigger than Columbus caravelas. But it was an experience.
How long was the trip?
I would say maybe just under 18 days, 21 days, something. I don't remember exactly,
Oh
but it was
my God, that's
yeah,
a
yeah.
long time.
And you know the amazing thing I recall that when we were crossing the Atlantic, sometime there was a storm, tremendous storm, and all the dishes on the table, everything ended up on the floor. The only people that were around were the kids because everybody else was sick. And I was, at that time you had the vertigo or for vomiting or whatever you had today,
Yeah.
And so, what experience.
So you arrived in Argentina. Of course, Dad was there. I'm assuming he had this house or at least a place to stay
No,
at.
no, we rent a house. I describe in the book. We rent a house from the old Italian family, and it was a little bit the outskirts of the city. The city was Azul. It's a town right now, 50, 60,000 people, something like now. At that time, it was much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman, he had a carriage, and he used to make a living going to the railroad station, wait for the people, and take them to wherever. At that time, there were not too many taxis.
Mm.
Yeah, and so we went there, and of course, my father had been in the war, lost his brother, lost a brother-in-law. My grandfather, we don't know, disappeared because the German took him to work in the factory in Germany. Whatever. It was a tragedy.
Mm. Yeah, that's crazy. My grandma, rest her soul, she used to tell me about World War II in the Philippines,
Yeah.
and it was the Japanese that took over the Philippines, and she was a young girl, and she had to run to the mountains and hide there for.
That's what happened to us. That's what happened. My parents, they had the dividing line between the Allied from the south. There was a river called Garigliano, and the north were the German. And so the German, as the Allied troop came, you had to move. People, it was a tremendous misery. Went to the mountain in the winter, with the snow.
Hmm.
And I had a chapter there that they were having fire all the time, constantly fire, because they had a hut. And what happened, the tragedy was that they ended up with the ticks. And there were no DDT, there was the, and so the answer to that was they burned the place, and they built another one. And the women, those people used to carry for an undercloth, the undercloth made of wool, thick wool. And so what happened is that and of course they shower, there was no water. They get a big cauldron, and they put the snow, and the women make a fire, and then with a stick they boil those clothes, and eventually make a fire inside, and in the winter time to dry that. I don't understand how but the instinct of survival. The instinct of survival that make you do anything.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Like humans are so resilient.
Resourceful. Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you sit there, and the tragedy, my father used to tell me. See, my father was a worker. They were workers, so they were used to the handwork. But the people that they were a teacher, they have a maid, they will have servant all the time, a daughter or whatever. Okay, those are the people that suffer the most because at that time there was no money. The money was worth nothing. And there was food. So there was no food. So you had to go from one place to another. And going, most of the women, they were in Indian file, go down the mountain and to another place to exchange a few things or whatever. And I remember my father already, he had been in the Italian Marine, but Italy had capitulated. Now the German, they were looking for all the Italian soldiers because they make them work. They had to carry stuff, dig the trenches, go to taken to Germany as a prisoner to work. So what happened? My father was disguised as a woman, in between. Yes, in between the women, and so one day they were going to down the valley. They found they didn't have anything. They found a German soldier dead. So they took their boots and they took the jacket, and they were going down there. So eventually, the British plane saw that they did, and they start to bombard that area.
My God.
So my father grabbed my mother, and they went into a ditch, but some people got killed. So it's
war is no bueno.
Yeah.
When you were living in Argentina, was there prejudice towards Italians from the Argentinians?
Yes, I still remember. They left a mark. They used to, I remember, first of all, those Italians in general, they were ambitious. What they couldn't accomplish in Italy, they tried to accomplish in Argentina. And in general, the Argentine people are good people, but the average person at that time, those people, they were very complacent. They have, for generations, some of them, they have the typical Spanish house. There was one or two room, and I remember to me, the thing that bothered me was they used to call us gringo. But the gringo was a very despective, very putting down thing. And
and then as a child, I saw that, or I read that you were sent away to live with the priests.
Well, what happened was the family was very poor. So they went to, my mother and my father went to school 1 or 2 grades, that's it. And so my father had the desire all the time to learn. So what happened was that those missionaries came to a church not too far away where my parents used to live. And they show me the picture that they have a horse, they were playing soccer, and they were all the good things that the kids do. But they show me that the church, the masses, and you had to study. So I say to my father, I said, I would like to go there or whatever, okay? And my father, arranged whatever. I was 11 years old. The separation from my parents was very difficult.
Oh my God.
For my mother, 11 years old,
So you lived with the priest for how long?
7 years.
Oh.
7
Do you ever
years.
come home though?
Once a year in December, because December is summer there. Okay. So you finish the school in December before Christmas, and you go for 1 month to see my parents.
All right. So they feed you, they educate you, but what do you pay them back?
Well, my father make a small donation. This was mostly to get you to become a priest.
Did they beat you up?
Well, yeah, they beat you. But when you didn't understand or study, whatever, okay? Some of them, they got you for the year pulling. We were kids, and slapping. Yeah. Sometimes
Oh my
looking
God.
back, looking back,
How
yeah.
did that affect you?
Well, at that time, it was like something normal because you see what happened even with my father. When I didn't know anything, he used to. There was not the time that you reason with a person. At that time, you just have to do it. You do this, it's it. That's the way it's going to be.
Yep, that's the way it was. I want to ask you one thing. It's a bit controversial, but I hear some Italians love Mussolini.
Yes, well, some of them. I'm going to tell you a story.
Mm.
What happened was that Mussolini came to power and he was a dictator. And so the kids from very early age, they had to parade, they had the black shirts,
Mm.
and so you are a member of the fascist party.
Mm.
Now, my parents were poor. And so the committee established you had to have fascist uniform. So my father went to the committee there and spoke to the people and said, listen, I can afford to have two uniforms. I will buy one, and the other one, the party give me the uniform. And they told him no, whatever, they have an argument. So my father knew that somebody that was in the party connected, he have free uniform. So he was not wise enough. He opened his mouth and he said, well, how come he had it and I cannot get mine? So my father used to tell me very seriously, this guy, he grabbed him by the neck and by the pants and the back of the pants, and he threw him in the street in front of everybody.
Oh, man.
Talking about humiliation. Well, time passed, the war was over, and there was a retaliation.
Mm.
The people that were on the other side were retaliated against those people that abused the power.
Mm.
So what happened, the mother of this fellow, the mother came and kneel in front of my grandmother, asking for forgiveness. Because you see what happened, if you have reported him, my father would reported him, it would have been repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
If
So what happened? Did your grandmother or your dad reported the guy?
No, they didn't do that because they were simple people, human beings. They went through so much tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much misery. What is the point of retaliation or whatever?
100%, I agree.
Yeah. And beside that, the Catholic, they had in the simple way, they had the Catholic, you had to forgive, in their own way, the people, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's the story.
Mm-hmm. So after you finish at the school at the priest, what did you do?
After 7 years.
After 7 years, what did you do?
Yeah, let me tell you this, something so what happened was that the first year I was not doing very well with my studies. My marks were very low. But the Jovenado, this place, so they have an orchestra. And so now you can apply to play an instrument, but the chief had to permit you.
Mm.
So I was rejected. And so imagine I was 12 years old, 13 years old. That hurt me like hell. And so what happened was that the following year, I studied and they admit me to play violin.
Oh, nice.
And I love it. I love it.
So my initial question was like, after that, learning music, did you go to college?
Well, what happened was I remember one day after I finished that, I liked music very much. I have a conversation with my father. I said, Dad, I would like to go to the conservatory and study music.
Mm.
So my father was a practical man. He said, well, it's nice, but how are you going to survive? In order to be a concertist, you have to be number one. And how many number one you have in the world? So
Only
you have
one.
to think, yeah. So he said, you should, whatever you want to do, we help you with the best we can.
Mm.
And so that's why my friends, they were going to go to the university to study medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I joined them. But really, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue what was medicine or anything. I was just, I was a typical person. It's like a small boat in the middle of the ocean at the mercy of the wind. Going any direction. You don't know. You see the horizon, 360 degrees, but you don't see
You're clueless.
the land, the earth.
But you did well. You graduated.
Yes, I eventually I graduated, and it was very difficult. It was very difficult because I studied without books. My parents couldn't afford books.
How did you study then?
So what happened was, first of all, I used to go to the library and get the book for 3 or 4 days, and those books, they were like a papyrus. Some of them stained, some of them without the pages torn, whatever. But what I took advantage was in La Plata, the University of La Plata, where I used to was the university. We rent a house, and we were maybe 10 students, and there were different rooms, and we had 2 students per room, 2 students. And so what happened was that most of the people, they were well off. I was the son of the immigrant. And so what happened was that they used to leave Friday afternoon, they had a good time, whatever, okay? And they came back Monday, early in the morning, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So during that weekend, I had the room for myself, and I had the books, taking note and this and that. And I did very well because I studied very hard.
And then you graduated medicine. You went home to Italy. You were going to plan to practice.
What happened was, so in Argentina, I saw there was no future for me.
Why?
Well, because you know what happened, you had to specialize, and to get the specialty was very difficult. You had to have connection and stuff. So I decided to go to Italy and specialize in Italy. But before doing that, I graduated in December. And December is the summer in Argentina. Italy was winter. So now the classes, I arrived to Italy on March 1st. I went to the University of Naples to take the exam. They say, no, you have to wait until September. September, because the new year was starting, whatever. A scholar year. But meantime, I was in, like I mentioned before, Scauri has a beautiful bridge. And a lot of people come, and there was one fellow, knew my family, and we started to talk. And he said, he convinced me to come to United States because he saw there was a future here. So I have my cousin here, my uncle here in Connecticut and New York. I wrote to them, and they welcomed me here. I came here, and I didn't speak English.
I was going to ask.
I didn't speak English, and I had to go to I had to borrow money for them to go to New York University for I don't know how many months to learn. Now, and I start to prepare for the exam. The exam, because my diploma was not recognized here. I had to take exam called ECFMG foreign graduate.
Mm-hmm.
When you pass that exam, that allow you to apply to a hospital, a program for a residence, for training. And I want to become a surgeon. So that took 5 years.
Why did you want to be a surgeon?
Well, I don't know. I just like it. It's something that, getting something out of the hat. I mean, challenging. I guess it was challenging. Whatever. Yeah.
There are other challenging things.
I know, but I don't know. Don't ask me why. Because, but anyhow. So I apply and I got a 5-year training, working every other day. We were, you were working, and this is what I did my training. We used to do open heart, and so open heart, and so what happened is that's why I had the vascular, the trauma. When we were in call, in my first year internship was in Misericordia in the Bronx, and Fordham Hospital, and when you were in call, you were up all night, gunshot wound, stab wound. But you know what happened? And eventually, after 1 year, I went to Cooper and Camden, also another battlefield. But there were a lot of gunshot wounds, stab wound, whatever, a lot of. So, but the exposure was great, unfortunately for the people, but exposure was great because you got a lot of exposure, a lot of training, and become a good surgeon.
Were you married then?
No, I was not married. I married when I was a chief of surgeon the last year because the way that I met my wife, there was a patient that has a surgery and has a complication. And he couldn't eat, he had tubes all over, and they had to give intravenous. And they called the IV team, and they couldn't start the vein, find the vein. They called other resident, intern, they couldn't. So eventually they called me. So, and I remember well that day, I went to see what would be eventually my future father-in-law. So the name was Petrillo, Clement Petrillo. He was the dean of the Philadelphia Academy of Performing Arts.
No way.
So what happened was that I go there and I remember vividly that picture. He was sitting in a chair close to the bed with a gown. He big eye, pale, and the arm all swollen, black and blue. So I walk in. I say, Mr. Petrillo, how are you? I'll introduce myself. And right away, I knew he spoke Italian. So we start to speak Italian. So now we were talking and explaining who I was. So eventually, after a while, he was very relaxed. He was smile a little bit. And he said, okay, doctor, you're going to start the IV now? There is an opera called La Forza del Destino, the destiny, no? So what happened was, it's not because I was so good and this, because destiny or luck or whatever, I had started an IV and he didn't even realize that. So from that day on, after God, I was second in command. So anyhow, so what happened was that eventually, after some time, he got better, he went home, and one day, he called me. So he said, Doctor, did you mind to go with my daughter to this concert, represent us, because I don't feel up to go. Of course, for me, it was hitting the lottery, So I remember Roberta, my future wife, and we went to this concert. I was unbelievable, the luxury, the thing. You were like in a Versailles, like a palace. And so I was exposure and so eventually from there, and that's it.
That's it. After a while, you married her?
Yes, my last year, when I was a chief artist, I married her. And we married at the base.
Okay. Have you ever dealt with a patient who refused a vital procedure on the grounds of religious beliefs?
Yes, I have a patient, I remember, a Jehovah's Witness. And this patient was pregnant. I had seen this lady a few months before, maybe 1 or 2 months before, because she has stone in the gallbladder. And so now with the pregnancy, the anesthesia, try to avoid surgery, it postpone as much as possible until the baby is delivered, and eventually you can do elective surgery. So anyhow, we give antibiotic, we treated her, and she did well, and eventually gradually she felt better and she went home. Now she was 1 or 2 months more advanced in pregnancy, came back to emergency room. She had to be admitted. We treat again, and she didn't eat for a few days. We give intravenous fluid. We start to feed her, and she started to vomit again, started to spike fever. And so I said, listen, explain everything, the risk. And so she accepted to have the surgery, but she told me, doctor, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. No matter what, you're not going to give me transfusion. And I was a little bit naive at that time. I just finished training, a little cocky maybe, whatever, okay? Yeah. And so what happened was, she said, doctor, I really mean it, because I have a friend of mine that gave her blood, and she sued the doctor, whatever,
Ooh.
Yeah, well. So now I said, now you have 2 people here. So I decided to do the surgery. Now, in order to do the surgery, you need another doctor to assist you. And you need an anesthesiologist. When they find out that she was Jehovah's Witness and she presented the same situation, they jump on me. Because they say, they told me everything.
Yeah.
You know
You're
what
crazy.
I mean?
Yeah.
So anyhow, to make a long story short, we did the surgery. She did very well. Because we did laparoscopic in a small hole.
How do you stay focused during a surgery?
Well, as a matter of fact, eventually become routine.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but have you ever lost a patient on the operating table?
Yes.
And how did you deal with that?
Well, I lost a patient. One time, the patient through a pulmonary embolism. They had clots in the leg that we were nowhere, and I was doing some surgery, gallbladder or whatever, okay? And suddenly, the anesthesiologist couldn't control. And eventually the patient died. I had the autopsy show the massive pulmonary embolism. Another time, another ruptured aneurysm with a thoracic surgeon. He saw the patient in the emergency room. He had to open the chest, clamp the aorta and the chest, and rush to the OR. So the chance for the 5%.
Yeah.
And he didn't make it either. So
Wow.
So now also, it's not the patient that you lose in the OR, because in the OR, most elective cases or whatever, is the patient that you open up doing surgery, you find that has a cancer with metastasis spread all over, and
it's over.
It's over, and that's a tragedy. That's a tragedy that really.
Are you the one that goes to the family and say, "Hey, by the way"?
I did.
How do you do that? How can you go someone?
Well, it's you see what happened. I learned. First of all, I got very involved. I suffer with the family. I suffer with them. And what happened is that I didn't lie to them, but I don't want to don't give a false hope. When I tell the patient, I say, while we're doing surgery, because when you're doing surgery, you explore, you touch everything. That's the opportunity, yeah. And sometimes you can end up with have a cancer of the head of the pancreas or whatever, bad tumor, okay, or whatever. And so, and sometimes you have, so you find another tumor, and you go to the family and say, listen, we found this. We're going to call the oncologist. You're going to discuss maybe chemotherapy or radiation or whatever, and we have to hope for the best. And you have to have faith, and every day something new is being discovered. And you try the best, and you hug the patient. Many times hold the hand, a hug, because it happened to this patient. It can happen to me.
Yeah,
it can happen to members of my family. Happen to my father-in-law.
Yeah. Okay, when you had a bad day, like a patient passed away, or
yes,
when you get home, I'm sure it still affects you. How do you how do you forget about it? How do you compartmentalize the idea?
It's tough. It's tough. It's not easy. For instance, when I lost a patient with pulmonary embolism, I was not well. She had a clot in the legs, and it can happen.
What do you do though? Like mentally, do you listen to music? Do you? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I used to talk to my wife. Talk to my wife, and try to. Maybe that night you're not going to sleep. I'm very difficult for sleep anyhow, and so you're going to be tossing around, and you're a human being. You have feeling like it. At least me. When I used to do this surgery, laparoscopic surgery, I used to, before the patient went home that day, I used to go to see the patient, and I give it the instruction. At night, after dinner at home, before I went to bed, I called the family again to find out how I was doing, the patient was doing, whatever. And early in the morning, before I went to the operating room, I called again the patient to find how I was doing. That was for me, put my soul at peace, because first of all, was good for the family, show that I care. Second, I save a lot of call, because sometimes they misunderstand what to do, and so in this way they don't have to call the office. The office have to leave a message. I can know if I'm doing major surgery, I can know call the family right away, and you don't know if it's an emergency or not. They create a lot of anxiety.
That's beautiful. I love that how you approach it. That you try to have a relationship.
You have a soul.
Yes, amen.
You have a soul. I mean, I don't. Some other people do it a different way, but for me, I was lucky to become a surgeon, because when I started, I was the small boat in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And So I was lucky and I helped thousands of people through the years.
Mm-hmm. You're a hero. Hey, we need more doctors.
Well, but
Yeah.
today is changing. Everything changing today.
Mm-hmm.
It's different.
Do you think in the future there will be robots performing surgeries?
Well, most probably. I think so.
Yeah.
Right now, I can be here, and from here, with the right equipment, I can be doing surgery in India.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I've seen that before, yeah.
Yeah, with the,
That's
so
beautiful.
eventually, robot, why not?
Yeah, you're right. Do you have any advice to aspiring pre-med students that are listening currently?
Well, the advice I will give, they're going to be, life is going to be up and down.
Mm-hmm.
No, everything is rosy. It's not like you to say Marcus Welby. You remember Marcus Welby, or you're too young for that?
I think I'm too young for that.
Yeah, so there was a Marcus Welby, everything was rosy plus the commercial, So,
Okay.
so anyhow, but you're going to have moments, you're going to feel down, you're going to be exhausted, you feel you cannot make it.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the, like I say, growing up.
Mm.
So you have to take deep breath, talk to somebody, see, here, the beauty about this, you can have counselor, you can have access. I didn't have nobody. When I went to take my first exam, I didn't know what multiple choice was. Nobody, I was 28 years old. Nobody told me about multiple choice. And I remember we were in New York, this big ballroom, whatever, maybe 1,000 doctors there. And before going in, people from Harvard, big university, they were talking about. And so they told me that the answer was there. And I didn't have a clue. Just imagine my preparation. I didn't have a clue what was the multiple choice. Plus, you see, here you grow up with the multiple choice. So I didn't know you have 5 questions already automatically. If you have knowledge, automatically you take 3 away, and the thing is between, you reduce to 50%.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know all that. That's an adventure with time. I say.
That's so funny. Let's talk about your book, The American Doctor. What made you decide to write the book?
Well, what happened was I used to go to many friendly parties with a colleague and this and that. And sometimes other people, the doctor, politician, whatever, common people, and the first thing that they say, doctor, I notice an accent. Which country do you come from? I say, I'm Italian. And we start to talk. And so many people, more than an occasion, say, it's so fascinating what you're just telling me about, for instance, the thing that we talk about in Argentina, study without books and this and that,
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was that they said, doctor, you should write this. And more than one told me that. And I said, well, what am I going to write? I mean, I'm not a writer. I mean, I'm a simple Joe. I mean, So, but eventually, when my granddaughter was born, and you start to think about, and you say, what legacy I want to leave to this girl, to my child.
That's beautiful.
And so what happened in this environment in which a teenage era is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened, I say, I would like to put down this thing. So this way, in view that they have a certain age, I don't know how long I'm going to be around.
Mm-hmm.
I want to dedicate this book to her. So eventually, when she mature or whatever, and she can read or whatever, she said, "Oh, that was my grandpa. That's I'm doing this. I succeed in this because my father put a root and he started with nothing and he did this and he did that, and against all that he succeed. And if I succeed, anybody can succeed."
That's beautiful. I love the reasoning. I love it. How long did it take you to finish the book?
Well, maybe several years, I would say. At least three. At least 3. Because you know what happened? I'm a kind of guy that I don't go, for instance, I start to write something here today, tomorrow I'll write. But maybe for 2-3 days I will not write anything because I'm listening to my opera or I'm biking. I like to bike, or playing golf or whatever, read. I do a lot of reading. So, and eventually, you come back and you have a different idea and remember this, remember that. And eventually everything starts to come together. Everything starts to come together. And eventually you realize and say, wow.
That's beautiful. Speaking of remembering, how did you make sure that you're writing accurate memory?
Well, like I said, the past is written in stone. I remember I used to be young when my father used to talk to me, describe the war, the misery, the suffering. And eventually, at a certain age, I saw my parents when I was in Argentina building the house, 2 rooms. Those are the things. Those are the things that you cannot forget.
Of course.
Because it was not something pleasure. The thing that make you use your brain to survive.
It's close to the heart.
You cannot forget that.
It's close to the heart. What's the hardest part of writing the book?
The part that really bothered me was my relationship with my mom. You see, you have to understand this. I was 11 years old. I was separated from my parents since 11 years old. Eventually, after a 7 year old, I was with a priest. I went to public school for 3 years. And that was when I was close to my... And after that, I went to university. And I saw my parents once in a while. Eventually, I went to Italy. Eventually, came to United States. And my parents came to United States when I got married. And so what happened, I remember my mother. They used to... And writing about my mother, I remember I used to go there, the joy that I was there to visit for 1 week, 10 days. And already 48 hours before I was going to come back to United States, my mother already was holding the hand like that. I was, she didn't say nothing, but she told me everything. Looking at her, and the day that came when we hugged her, I remember my mother used to cry, but the tear were like a grapefruit, big tear. And she tried to talk to me and choke at the same time. and that picture I can never forget. So she lived until 95 years old.
Wow.
And my father died when she was 99 and a half.
You have good genes, sir.
My father was 90 years old. He was still biking, doing the shop with the bicycle. A small wheel, but it was biking, yeah.
That's amazing.
So you see, what you had to be smart in life. You had to choose your parents.
I think that's the hardest thing, right? That's funny. How did it feel when you finally finished the book?
I felt good. You know what? I'm still reading and reading, and I get emotional. I get very emotional. Because you know what happened? I was in practice with the residents and everything, maybe 40 years. Seemed like yesterday. Seemed like yesterday. And sometimes I get scared because I say, how? Sometimes I didn't sleep for 48 hours. Because if I don't sleep at night, I cannot sleep during the day. All right. So what happened was that you get scared because first of all, you're old. You don't have the energy that you have when you were young. And I say, how did I do it? How do I? Looking back, I say, forget it.
Are you afraid of your own mortality?
You know what happened? Sometimes I think about. Sometimes I think about, and the only thing I wish that when I had to go, my father, he was 99 and a half, and he had a lady taking care of him, helping, because my mother had died before. And one day he was watching a soccer game at night, and he just bent the head and went. He passed. So they called me, I went to Italy. So that's the way I prefer to go. To me, the tragedy is somebody has a tumor, incurable, with with a spread, whatever, and you know that the hope is very slim, the chemotherapy, the suffering, you see the person suffering, going down, steadily going down, the family suffer, and the person doesn't want to know that there's no future, and that linger. Everybody suffer. To me, that I don't want that, but it had to happen. But something like that, I prefer to go like my father.
Stay on your bike. What's harder, writing a book or operating on a patient?
Oh, operating was the easy part.
Hey, you're counting up people.
No, because it eventually has so much experience, become a routine. This is the same thing, when you learn to drive. Well, the first time you're driving, there's somebody talking to you, don't talk to me, don't do this, because so eventually when you get familiar, you're listening to the music, you're looking around, you're talking, you're doing it, because everything is normal, become normal. So the surgery was
easy.
I was in my field, I had good training, I had done thousands of surgery. I mean, become a routine. During my surgery, the nurse already knew the radio. Sometimes you couldn't have the radio, but they had the radio, I had my operas. I was listening to my operas.
And then you're just doing your magic.
And you do the surgery like, you can chew and walk at the same time. Chewing gum.
That's right. You achieved incredible things. Is there something you still want to achieve?
Well, I would like to be with my family as much as possible. I don't want nothing else. I think I have done something good for many 99.9% of the people. And I have given something to humanity. And I'm very proud of that. Starting from nothing. When I was in my youth, I would never have realized to come to this beautiful country, the land of opportunity, and I give thanks to God for allowing me to come here. And from the first day that I came to this country, and I saw that I used to be with my uncle and aunt in the Bronx. And I used to study all day. And after lunch, I used to go to Jacobi Hospital in the Bronx across it and go to the library. And when coming back, I used to see the bicycle, the children, the bicycle in the street, toys, or whatever. Like nothing was a normal thing. I never saw something like that. I didn't grow up with that. We didn't have nothing. When we were children, the street was of dirt, there was no asphalt, and we have a sock, and we put some cloth inside the sock or newspaper, and you will make a ball, and we kick in the ball. The poor ball was like a sausage at the end.
That's funny. I love that. Let's close with this one. Any advice to us younger people?
Have faith and hope. Faith and hope that you are in the right country and you can do it. But you have to be patient. You cannot achieve everything in one day. Here, what happened, unfortunately, everything moved fast. And I want something I want yesterday. No, it's not going to come yesterday. It's not going to come today. Something you climb the mountain. You climb the mountain and you don't go with a car. You have to walk, sometimes barefooted, to reach, like the Himalaya. People go on the top of the mountain. Sometimes succeed, sometimes they go up, come down, up, come down. Only if you reach the top. But they had to have the courage, the motivation to succeed.
Wise word from a wise man. Again, Dr. Sal, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the people can follow me on Instagram. Dr. Salvatore Forcina, MD.
Also, the website where they can get your book.
Yeah, it's The American Doctor, available in Amazon.
Beautiful, beautiful. Again, Dr. Sal, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too, sir. Bye.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Sal, for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aaron W. Osa for An Immigrant's Life. I'll see you guys later.